So if you were a style of food, either fried, baked, sauteed, what would you be?
Cooked in a wok, Asian style. High heat, good color, everything cooks really fast and you come out tender.
So first and foremost, how and when did you decide to pursue cooking for a living?
Boy, I don't even think it was my idea at first. 15 years old, my dad comes home, right? I'm just a skateboarder kid. My dad's always been an extreme workaholic. Since me turning 15, I was able to get a work permit, right? He was begging me to get to work. So anyways, long story short, he gets me my first job at Catelli's in Geyserville, washing dishes. And I wasn't fond of it at first, but that's where it all started for me, And to go a little further back, our family's always been Italian and big in the kitchen during holidays. Cooking's always been a huge part of our family. So I've always, I guess you can say, had it in me. Mom's always taught me dishes when I was younger and whatnot, but my dad was the first one to actually get me started in the restaurant business. 15 years of age, washing dishes, couldn't wait to get out of there, want to go skateboard, go to the skate park. Typical story, somebody, hey Colin, Alex didn't show up for his cooking job, and I'd be in back washing dishes, scraping off stuck meat sauce on the pans, you know what I mean? Yeah. He'd be like, hey, he didn't show up, he probably partied all night, whatever, I knew the guy. He's like, do you want to give it a try? And I was like, okay, whatever. Sure. I was a little scared about it, but whatever, I'll give it a try. I felt comfortable with everybody there. So I get online, it's a lunch, the ticket machine, I just remember that day so vividly. Smelling, pasta water in the back, hearing the ticket machine and the lady waitresses walking back and forth, and Randy, the chef of the place, standing next to me, and he's like, you ready? And he's, when I'm washing dishes, I'm looking through the little square hole and I'm watching them cook. Sure. So I'm seeing a lot of like what they're doing already. The pans are coming back. I see that it has, marinara, roasted garlic in it, and fresh basil, and some stuffed linguine on the side of the pan, right? So I had an idea of what was kind of already going on, and I probably would have been the best person to get in that situation at the time with somebody not being there. So, the first ticket comes through and it's aglio e basil, and I forget what it was, but I was
going to say that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, right. I could only imagine, right? It had to have been either of these three pasta dishes, and I still remember how to make that dish. It's fresh tomatoes, roasted garlic, and you finish it with some fresh torn basil and a little bit of seasoning. But the feeling I had once I put the pan down and stuck the flame on was like, ooh, it's there's a tension on you. You're in control of this cockpit of mise en place. You got your olive oil and your salt and pepper, you have your basil and your tomatoes, and you got your station, you got your cutting board. So I tied my apron up a little tighter that day, and Randy's like, put some olive oil in the pan, make sure your pan's hot. And these are all little lessons that have stuck with me, the beginning of the lessons that have stuck with me. Yeah. So man, I started cooking. Hot pan, olive oil's in, throw some roasted garlic in, seep it, it's hearing that sizzle. Okay, it feels good, man. I'm gonna put together something here. It's like I've always had an artist's touch to myself. So this is just art, but in a different form. Yeah. Didn't know how to flip. Yeah.
Flip the food in the pan.
Flip the food. He gave me a small non-stick pan and put a slice of white bread in it. This was after that shift, and he's like, just get practice flipping that piece of bread. And that's exactly how I learned how to do that. But to go back. You got the ladies looking through the ticket line for you, and they're surprised that the little kid punk dishwasher is now in the cockpit of their money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're sitting there like, maybe a little worried looking. They're like, oh, this guy's in charge of my tips now, and which is a huge feeling. It was actually
kind of powerful. In a
powerful way. Feeling. So. That first day, that first 10 minutes, man, of it being noon and lunch people, and I got my first order, was the next of the rest of my life. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was that one moment. Yeah. It was that, I don't know what would have happened if dude didn't show up.
Yeah.
And I would have been back in the dish pit still.
Isn't that amazing how that happens sometimes? Where just like right place, right time, someone didn't show up, something happened. And it was just like that kind of like divine intervention of allowing you to get to this place,
100%.
Yeah.
Like, it was supposed to happen that way.
Yeah.
I look back on it now that day, and I was like, holy smokes, man! It was a powerful day in my life and my career. So that's where it all started. So anyways, I got Randy there looking at me, and I might have did something wrong or added that basil a little early, and he was there to correct me on each step, each plate.
Randy was the chef at the time.
He was the chef at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was my first chef that I worked for. A great dude. He was an ex-professional baseball player. Just a really really stand-up dude. And so he was the one that kind of brought me along, and on that my first day of the job, and he stood by me, for the first few weeks. And obviously, I was born with the common sense of cooking. I didn't know how to explain it,
Yeah.
An artist knows what brush to use, what texture he's going to do, right?
Right.
I knew.
Yeah.
I knew what to do already, almost.
Do you remember how that dish turned out, that first one?
I don't, but I can tell you one thing. After a week, the waitresses weren't there staring at me anymore. You know what I mean? So that felt good.
Yeah.
These were ladies that were in the business and especially with that business for like 35 years.
Yeah.
A long, long time. That restaurant was open for, 70 years.
Oh, wow.
And so everybody was there for a really long time. And so I feel kind of honored that I had that nudge and was looked at like I was a 15-year-old kid, man.
Yeah.
I had a long Mongolian. I just wanted to go skate park. I was probably smoking weed and so it was just it was the first day of my career life. To the last, and that's where it all started.
That was your first introduction to cooking. Has it been pretty much cooking from there on out, or have you had any other kind of career aspirations, or just head down and focus on cooking?
A huge aspiration for me, because it ran in my family, and my great-grandpa Curtis was an amazing mechanic, right? And I always loved working on cars. If I didn't have cooking, I probably would have went to that. But to this day, I love working on cars, but
kind of a similarity, right?
Absolutely.
Getting in there and playing with kind of raw materials, and then making sure that the car is working. Same thing with food, playing raw materials and making a plate out of it.
Right, and there's a million ways you can do it wrong. You can burn your garlic, you could burn that, or you could put the water pump on. So there's a lot of similarities to it.
Yeah.
Cooking has always been with me. Through my ups and downs, lefts and rights in life, it's always been cooking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
This question that I want to ask you is about how cooking shaped you.
Yeah.
Even though we've just kind of spoken about that, but the way that I see cooking is it's just one of the most giving and selfless acts that
100%
someone can do, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess I kind of want to talk with you about that and how you feel about that idea of kind of giving yourself to this art form that is hours and hours and hours of work, and then just so someone can consume it in 15 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what it is too. Cooking. It is for me. It is being of service. Because you work for years and years and years for no pay. And especially if you necessarily don't have enough money to go to school. You've got to go stage, man, and go learn.
What's staging?
Staging is going into a restaurant saying, hey, I want to, I love your restaurant, and I just want to come in and work for free. I want to work, I know you're a great chef, and so I just want to work next to you, or work with your team. And that usually consists of doing everything that they don't want to do, and then so I did that to many restaurants, in all through San Francisco. What cooking's given me is structure, get to work in time, be clean, integrity, to have your mise en place cut right, to set the standard, I've always had a lot of pride in my cooking, and I'm always making sure that, my mise en place is set, I look good, you feel good, and then that in turn goes out on your plate, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's incredible what it has given me. It has given me an overflow amount.
Yeah, and it goes back to my new question is that you talking about how the food build personality, build etiquette, build self-pride, things like that. How has, you carry yourself as an introduction, I said, as being a guide or a seeker of spirituality, how has that journey made its way into food, or was it the reverse, where the food brought you into the journey of spirituality?
Well, that's a good question. Like I said, through my ups and downs, I always had cooking. There's been times in my life where I've been on rock bottom, man, and life wasn't always great, and there was addictions involved and a plethora of other things, but I always had cooking to go to. That was something I just always had flowing through my veins, always had the format of cooking, of giving, and that's another thing that leveled me. I was able to give a piece of myself to somebody, My spirituality came later. I always had this feeling of there was something bigger and better and grandeur above me, you know what I mean? When I started to awaken in life after coming through all my problems, and I went through an extremely bad divorce, and I shedded all these really bad addictions, friendships. I just awakened, When after I got done awakening, I got back in the kitchen, and I felt a lot more confident. I just felt like this was the gift I was given, was because I'm pretty dang good with salt and pepper.
Yeah.
And I love being in a kitchen. I don't know what it is when I can be in a kitchen and I just hear, you get to use all of your senses doing this art.
Yeah.
Touch, smell, taste, sound, hear. I mean, everything. It's an extremely spiritual process for me when I cook, when I put together recipes. I don't take it home necessarily. When I come in a kitchen, I'm not at my house before grinding on what I need to do or anything like that. That starts when I go through the door.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. And
usually it's the opposite, right? People that have these high intense jobs, stressful jobs, kitchens, they bring it home as well.
100%.
Right? Or they bring it to the workplace.
Big time, and I used to. But when I awakened, I didn't do that anymore. Everything was a lot more fluid. Weird to say, but I really knew how my dishes were going to come out before doing them. I would set intentions, of what I wanted to do. Yeah, it would just opened up a whole new door into my career.
We have had conversations before in the past about certain moods and certain musics we're listening to, certain, vibes we are, flows we are in spirituality. Because we'll just stick on the spirituality tip for a little bit. And I remember talking with you about how you want to, inject spirituality, love into the food, and that goes from how you feel as a person, how you carry yourself, the music you're listening to, and that kind of is going to go into this other question about Nourish and Vibe, which you can talk about. How are you able to channel these concepts of spirituality and love, and then have that as being a flavor profile, let's say, in people's experience of consuming your food? Imagine
this. You have relationships built over a dinner.
Yeah.
You have business deals going over a lunch. You have senses, you smell something, it reminds you of something your grandma did when you were 6 years old. Yeah. Cooking is so much more. Food is so much more than just what it is on the plate. It's nourishing to our soul, it's memories, it's smelling, touching, feeling. Relationships have been built over lunches and dinners, right, so it's it's a really powerful entity by itself.
Yeah.
So you have to think of it okay, what was the chef doing? I know when I go into work, when I wake up every day, I feel so good, and when I go to work, I feel even better, right? That's gotta come out onto the food I'm doing. Now that transforms into a couple. And then now they're eating something I just loved putting together and just loved doing. It was my calling to do, right? That's got to do something. And you've seen it in time and time again, what food has done in our history, right? Yeah. And what it's done in relationships and friendships. It's an incredible thing. Yeah. Nourish and Vibe, it's all about, setting intentions when you're cooking, burning some scents, playing some music, getting in that point of flow, right? Because when your energies are all balanced and you're in your state of flow, everything's going to come to you, and that feeling of just being so content of where you are, and now you're cooking food for somebody, amazing, right? And so I feel like when I'm doing Nourish and Vibe and I'm doing stuff for clients and stuff like that, that's all getting put out into my food. And setting intentions, not just buying any old broccoli, but what broccoli do you see that in the market that you like to use, So it's not like we just go and grab stuff, right?
Yeah.
We look at it, we pick it up and we look at it and we're like, oh, this one feels good.
Bring attention to all selections, all processes.
100%, right? When you grab your herbs, you grab the beautiful plump basil, and you're grabbing stuff with intention.
Yeah.
Now, you have your mise en place that has some meaning to you as a chef, to your heart, to who you are in light, And now you have this art form.
Yeah.
You have your pan. This is your canvas, dude.
Totally.
And so now you're picturing what this is going to be. You're picturing what you want to put in that pan, how you want your plate to come out, how you want it to taste, how you want it to look.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same way, like when you're making, you're a producer, or you're making like some kind of a music track, you're digging for the drum sounds, you're digging for the synth sounds, then you're reaching for your guitar, but you have this bank of bunches of beautiful basil, and you're like, okay, like this is my drum sound, this is my basil, this is my tomatoes, which is my my guitar tones. So then not just a different same concepts, but tap it different, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, but it's the thing that I think is really interesting about it is that forever the kitchen has been known as this psychotic chef, who throws shit, made for TV. And everybody hates it, but everybody has to deal with it because he's a genius or she's a genius, right? And so what you're kind of bringing to the table is something completely different.
100%. I've worked with chefs that would just beat up the reach-in because they got somebody who came in at 9 o'clock and they closed at 9 o'clock, who would dent the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing of being awake is telling yourself, I never want to feel that way.
Yeah.
When I'm doing what I want to do, you know what I mean? This guy has 30 years over me, and he's doing this, and it's like, okay, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to work for him, but it's like, imagine feeling that in your heart, in your aura, just your vibration. Yeah. That's miserable, It's like, so I told myself I worked with different kinds of chefs like that, where one would beat up, we called him the refrigerator beater, and then ones that, we were working at this place to a little offshoot, and, it was 600 people a day, and we had to do these chicken wraps, right?
Wow.
And he was such an angry dude. He'd get the avocado, cut it in half, just squeeze it out, and I was just like, Jesus, So you work with these people.
Yeah.
And if you're aware to it, you don't want to be that way.
Yeah.
And I was never that type of guy where I never brought my anger, never was angry when I was in my spot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, I'm never going to do that. Well, I'm never going to do that. And he makes waitresses cry, and that's horrible. But I'm never gonna. And have an empathy for it all, but also just having a feeling of like, geez, it's just like it's creating this really low vibration.
Yeah.
Nourish and Vibe is about creating an extremely high vibration,
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, it's like burning some scents, putting on some music, man. And like whoever works with me, it's like building them up, building them up and having fun and laughing and making sure that the vibes is so super high, and every time that goes out onto the party. Foods like that, it's that that transducer to like what it's going to do to the people eating your food.
Yeah. Let's take a step back from food a little bit. You've been talking a lot about awakening, and you and I have talked a lot about meditation, astro projecting. You've helped me a lot kind of get into certain people that are huge advocates of it and kind of movers and shakers in this whole field. What is meditation for you? And what is astral projection for people that don't know in internet land?
Right. So I have a big heart, man, and that would just cause me to overthink and just suffer. You know, I would always be in the past or be in the future, and to have, you know, the feeling of like waking up with all this weight on your chest and anxiety, and so meditation. I overheard a conversation of somebody saying, you know, I never felt so good after my first meditation. And I started doing a lot of reading on it and how it just singularly does different stuff to different people, but for the most part, just kind of calms the mind chatter down, you know?
Yeah.
So I started meditating.
How long ago, you think?
Oh God, about 4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But really hardcore for like the last 2 years. Right. And what it's done for me is saved my life. You know, it has completely just shut off my mind chatter. It has opened up absolute new doors in every area of my life.
Yeah.
It has calmed me. It has centered me. It has brought me to just new levels of my career, of a lover, of a friend, of just what it is that me, singularly, this human right here, light, what makes me tick.
Yeah.
You know, and that's important because I was always worried about other people. I was always worried about how big my checks were gonna be, how my mom's doing. I'm worried about my friends like me. You know, why am I not in the same pay demographic as my friend?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's complete.
Self-doubt.
A lot of self-doubt.
Competition of the self. Yeah.
100%. That's self-suffering, right?
Yeah.
So meditation took me out of that, right? And singularly dropped me in a chair and made me turn inward and made me learn who I was, you know, what my path was, what, not his path or keeping up with the Joneses over here, but who this entity is.
Yeah.
It just absolutely shaped me, you know? Yeah. It cut off all the mind chatter.
And when you say mind chatter, what do you mean by mind chatter for people that are hearing what you're saying and they're like, but what is mind chatter, you know?
Oh, I'm gonna be really honest with you. You know, when I was in my addiction and stuff like that, the person we all talk to ourselves in some sort of way. My self chatter was fascinating about killing myself. I hated who I was. I was always
the inner voice.
The inner voice. The inner voice. The inner voice just hated myself. It was never an inner voice that was like, you know, you're great, singularly, Colin. You're great for who you are. You don't need to. You know what I mean? My inner voice was like, you need to be catching up with that person. It was an ego. Yeah. You know, and that's exactly what the inner voice is. It's our ego. That's gone now. You know, so. That's how I say it saved my life. You know, it has brought me full center, and it centers me every single day.
Yeah, you know, I think that like definitely after COVID, which we'll talk a little bit about, is that we've had a paradigm shift in how people, you know, want to live their life. We had people that were, you know, on the stock market, and then they went home, they saw their families for the first time, and forever, and then started learning how to make bread and all this kind of stuff. And so there was this kind of a societal paradigm, mental, spiritual shift, right? And so I think that having this conversation about meditation and talking about mind chatter that we all kind of suffer from, I know personally for me, when I think about meditation, it's that classic, I'm sitting in this room like a monk and all this kinds of stuff, you know, and I personally find my meditation through playing instruments or doing some kind of art form, and it's not necessarily with my eyes closed, humming or something like that. But where have you found your form of meditation?
Right, so like you, my meditation is everywhere. It's in my cooking. Mainly, it's in my bed. And it's sitting up with my spine erect, right? And coming to my breath and just breathing in my mind's eye and really picturing light going through my head and picturing the 7 layers of my chakras and a lot of visual stuff for me. And then that also in terms of me cooking and just like putting ingredients in a pan and just having that just state of mind of just calmness, you know? Yeah. But the main form of meditation for me is in my bed, and I'm sitting erect, and my eyes are closed, and I'm sitting Indian style, and I'm going for my breath. I'm feeling the air come out of my nose, and picturing the air going through every single pore on my body, getting just sucked in, right? And then coming out smoky. And that's just all my thoughts and all stuff that's kind of icky and that doesn't need to be with me necessarily.
Just letting go what doesn't serve you.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then what I'll do is I'll listen to binaural beats, and I'll listen to certain frequencies, which we can talk about astral projection. About a year and a half ago, I was meditating. It was about an hour meditation. It was a chakra meditation. I was focusing through my root chakra, the red chakra, through the purple, the head chakra. And I started feeling really tingly through my feet all the way up to my head. It was almost like a piece of your body was going into false sleep, right? So I left my earphones in and laid down, and about 20 minutes later, my body was like vibrating so bad I couldn't even feel it. I had no feeling.
Yeah.
I knew what was happening because I'd read so many books about it.
About astral projection.
About astral projecting, and I was trying to keep my thrill down, because once your heart races, you wake up.
You wake up. Yeah.
You wake up. So what I started to do when I would go through this would hold my breath, and that would put my emotions on pause. And so the first time coming out of my body, it puts goosebumps on me. I can't even explain it. I raised up above my body, and I was scared to look back, right? And I just see my arm like kind of by the edge of the bed, and I look straight back up again. I go through my ceiling, the attic, and then the roof of my room, and then I'm looking down on the street. And then just like that, I'm gone. I'm flying so fast into the stars, right? And I feel the air hitting me, and it's like the most comfortable feeling. I can't even explain it. It's not like cold air or hot air. It's like the perfect temp air. Your vision is 360 degrees, which is something I cannot even explain right now. And then you're going through the stars, and you see the twists of the atmospheres, different atmospheres, and the speckle of the stars, different color stars and nebulas, and it's
some sacred geometry in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sacred geometry everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I can go into stories and stories about that, but when I came back to on that first time, I cried my butt off.
Yeah.
Just bawling, because we are so much more than this physical body, and that was the indication for me.
Sure. Yeah, I we've talked a lot about it, and what I've kind of learned.
I've texted you after it.
I know you have.
I've texted you after it, like, dude.
One thing that I've noticed about myself, and I've talked to you about it, is a fear of going too deep.
Yeah.
Or a fear of, like you said, like you didn't want to look back at yourself. There's a lot of times, I'll feel deep in a meditation, but I will have this feeling like I need to open my eyes because maybe someone's there.
Yeah.
And maybe someone out in internet land has the same kind of feeling. And I think that what I've been trying to work on too is allowing myself to lose the fear, which is probably a whole bunch of other rabbit holes, but I feel is a lot of people's kind of apprehension as well, because we don't understand it, right? You know, like when I talk to my mom and whatever, it's like a lot of times people don't want to smoke weed because they don't understand it.
Right.
They hear these things or whatever. And meditation, spirituality, they don't understand it, so they don't want to go there. And so I think that, like, what I've always learned from you is that the meditation is a new plane. It is a new place. It's this other, universe essentially that you are tapping into, right?
Right. So I feel like, to us as being light and living this human experience in these meat suits, I'll call it, we are just awareness.
Yeah.
We are meditation. That's who we are. We come here and develop these egos and this pre-programming from our parents or schooling and stuff like that. And in cases creates suffering for us later, right? So meditation brings you back to who we really are. And that's awareness and love you know? A lot of people, when they start to astral project, and I know a lot of people out in internet land have had that, where somebody feels like somebody's feeling on your chest, and you can't move, and that's the key to astral projection. That's the front door right there. And so what you have to do, and is, if you want to, you know, you can either wake up, and that's fine if people are scared, but you have to keep your emotions down during that time, because what we want to do is freak out. There's somebody sitting on my chest, and I have to like, and then you're like trying to move, and you're trying, and so anyways, you have to stay calm during that. You have to stay calm, because then if you do that, you'll come out of your body. That's the front door to astral projection. It's not a demon sitting on your chest or anything like that. It's us in such a theta frequency in our mind, which is like, you know, it's a frequency that our mind keeps, that it's just not much going on. It's a real calm frequency. But that's the front door to astral projection right there. And then if you can get past that, and what I do is I just hold my breath. And when I hold my breath, it prevents me from giving any kind of emotion on what's going on right then and there. If I kept breathing, my heart rate would raise, and I'd snap out of it. And I just hold my breath, and then off I go. It's amazing. And so after that, I was bawling, and all this literature that I read up to the point, I was just, what I saw was absolutely 100% real. Like, I saw my whole street, dude. I saw the cars parked on it. There is life after we perish, you know what I mean? And so that was a huge reckoning for me.
Awesome stories. Let's get back to food for a second. We had COVID, which changed a bunch of shit for a bunch of people, specifically the whole restaurant and how people consume food, and having Uber Eats, and then you couldn't even go into a brick and mortar and all these kinds of things. How do you see the future looking for food? Not just in terms of, you know, restaurants and people going to restaurants and having brick and mortars, but also how people kind of consume food. And so in terms of, you know, once we started having these Uber Eats things, you know, food was coming in a box, and it was cold and wilty, and maybe all of that spirituality and nourish and vibe you're putting into the food was kind of being erased, you know, by this whole thing. And so I guess to re-ask the question, do you see the path that you're on as this nourish and vibe path? Do you see this being kind of a revolutionary new step into our interaction with food, and we no longer going to, let's say, brick and mortars? We're now having kind of these experiences with food in different places, and it kind of opens up the paradigm of having a restaurant where that is. Dude,
where do I start? You know, us as humans, we love experiences. Right. If it's going to wine tasting and dealing with the tasting of food and stuff like that, like people love that. You know, we look for experiences. Everybody turned inward during COVID, right? Their spirituality, what they were consuming, what their kids were consuming. I see it going in a way more healthier route. I see people and it going back into the family kitchen. I really do. I don't know how people can make money off restaurants anymore. You know, doing this for 20 years, I see restaurants closing down everywhere, you know, and I just don't know how people, with inflation, I don't know how people could do it. Why not have something, you know, because a lot of people are reaching towards spirituality now. Why not talk to somebody? And if it's a client, you know, the last client I talked to, I got to know her really well before I even made a menu. She's from Indian descent. Yoga goes back in their family almost 60 years. This lady Venus, she's absolutely epic. But I got to know her first. I got to vibe with her first. You know, I didn't just like, okay, I'm going to send you a PDF of files, and you know, it's like I got to see what their religions were. I just got to like vibe with them. You know, and like and she's ended up being a really good friend, and teaching me an incredible amount of yoga history. So look at that whole, just right there. That exchange. And that's what it's about, is about exchange too. It's like, I'm going to go and talk to somebody. I'm going to really talk to them. I'm going to see what they love about food. You know, what, like with their party that they're planning or whatever it is, like what do they see happening?
Kind of tailoring a bespoke experience of food for
100%.
each person. Yeah.
Each person. I will never have any PDFs that I'm going to send anybody. I'm going to send them me. And we're going to chat, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to talk. Because then I'm going to take what their material is and I'm going to put it on a piece of canvas for them.
Sure.
You know, with my love, with my vibration, with my frequency, you know. Yeah. So it's really a 50-50 pass off, you know, but I'm in fact giving them my all. I'm a human. I taste, I smell, I hear. I mean, all my senses that makes me what I am goes into that plate. But I got that from them, you know, so it's all about just working with them, you know, and then I go to their house, you know, and had dinner with his family, man. I got to know his kids and what they were doing, and I had them help me, you know, and they love helping in the kitchen and teaching them something, how to cut mushrooms correctly. So it's like really stepping into somebody's family. And
that's kind of where you see maybe like this new restaurateurship going.
Well, that's where I see me.
That's where you see you.
You see me going. You know, when it comes to the whole restaurant tour, I see it going healthier, but I don't know where I see it going. You know, what I see now is everybody closing down, opening up, 2 months, 6 months closing down. Yeah.
And it's a tough racket too.
It is a tough racket.
You know,
it's not because they're not doing good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, you know, right now the restaurants are kind of the bad guys. A little bit, you know what I mean? It's like the food's too expensive, or the wait staffs are shitty. And in the end, it's like, you know, they're all beholden to circumstances as well, and so it's a tough thing. Like, you know, like when you start off like Catelli's, 75 years.
Yeah.
People have been working there forever.
Yeah.
Now, if a restaurant makes it 5-6 years, it's like, wow, let's
crazy.
give these people an award, right? So like that concept of like the family, the restaurant you go to, the, you know, you support, that's definitely.
I think too, somehow they need to give experience. Give the person an experience. Yeah. You know, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of, you just go into a restaurant, it's like the same old deal. It's not evolving. Yeah. You know, you go order your drink, you're waiting
Talk to a robot.
Talk to a robot, you're waiting for your food. There's no experience there.
Yeah.
You know, I think I was talking to you about, you know, hey Jay, like how should I talk with my friend that has a floral shop?
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
You know, how can we blend our crafts?
Yeah.
So I think that's like part of it, man. If people want to evolve, have an experience. You know, have something that people leave there like, man, I learned A, B, and C, and that was epic. I can't wait to go back.
Totally.
You know, because, like I said, it's not about being expedient. It's about being meaningful, and that's everywhere in life.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely agree that we're all craving these experiences. Right? Like everything is. I mean, of course, we're living a life, which is an experience too. But I think trying to find something that has some humbleness to it, some creative, and I like how you were talking about exchange.
Yep.
Exchange is really important. I think, you know, in my opinion, a lot of work, not just restaurants, but across the board of all kind of gigs. It really, and you talked a little bit about it, it all was about money.
Yep.
How can I get money from this? You know, and then you got into meditation, and it's like, okay, well, we need money to survive, of course, but what else can we gain? What else can we give? What else can we exchange?
Totally, and that was like my career, Jay, for 27 years, was making other restaurateurs money, as me coming in as executive chef, you know. So I evolved, you know, through my spirituality, through my ups and downs. Like I evolved with my cooking game to where it's like, now I want to blend with other people and communitize what I'm doing, you know, and if it's with my girlfriend has a floral shop or with a family that's doing a graduation party. that's where I feel like it needs to go.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I'm going.
Yeah.
You know, and so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Where can we find more about Chef Colin Curtis or Nourish and Vibe? Both.
Jason, you can absolutely reach out to me. This is absolutely evolving as we speak right now. I mean, it's been by the ear and it's just going absolutely crazy.
Cool.
But yeah, reaching out to my email or, you know, I do have some pictures online or my Facebook or anything like that. Reach out and let's plan your next fiesta, man.
Yeah, good. Yeah, we'll in the description below we'll put the information for Colin. Thank you so much, Colin, for blessing us with your time.
Love
here
you, buddy.
At the Life Trippin' Studios. And life's a trip. Let's tell the story. See you guys later.
Boom, boom.